Welcome to Hairblazers, the podcast where salon owners and industry specialists share their knowledge. Our mission is to empower owners and elevate salons through conversation that matters most to you. Today we have a very special guest who has been on the show a few times with us, and we all love it. This is Jodi Ohama. So former salon owner, multi-location salon owner, current leadership coach.
Yep.
Just a really smart lady.
Oh, well, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I surround myself with really smart people.
Oh, that's so kind. That's so kind. Well, today we're talking about an interesting topic. One I don't think's really come up before in any of our podcasts, and it's about toxicity in the salon.
Yeah, toxic employees.
Toxic employees. I don't know. Maybe we could start off with a story. So I have one that kind of comes to mind when I think of toxic employees. It's actually from a salon. It was the first salon that I worked at, so it was kind of like my first experience at a salon. So I didn't, have a prior expectation of how things would be. I was in prior workplaces, was pretty lucky, got along really well with my coworkers. Didn't have a lot of challenges. So in this salon, owners were great, great people. They had family that worked with them as well. Loved them very much. There was one stylist. So I was coming on kind of as an apprentice, but there was a stylist leaving at the time, and I was kind of getting some of her clientele. So this one stylist just didn't like me. Just didn't like me. And I wasn't sure why. I thought I was very friendly and open. And so first thing I did was I went up to her and I said, hey, I noticed that, you don't really talk to me very much. Seems like you kind of talk behind my back a bit, like what's going on? And she just looked me dead in the face and was like, yeah, I just don't think we're going to get along.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, kudos to you for being an apprentice or like new in your industry, in the career, and actually having the courage to go and say something. So I just need to call that out.
No,
but wow, totally just shut you down. Like, I don't think we're going to get along.
And I was super thrown off because I'm thinking, okay, so if it's not something that I can change, this is going to be a challenge. So my next thought was, okay, I'm going to go talk to the owner about it, let her know kind of what's going on. And so I did. And I could tell, she was understanding. This stylist had been there for like quite a while. It wasn't the most senior stylist, but had been there for a while. Yeah. And I just kind of started getting the feeling like, I don't think this is going to change. So I know at one point when this stylist and I were in the back, the owner came to the back and kind of had a conversation with both of us, but it was very like, you guys need to figure this out and this and right, where it was almost like it was put on me as well, which I get, you want to be fair, but I don't think that's necessarily the right way to go about it. And the stylist ended up, not leaving. So I really felt at that point, like, love the owner, love the family there, that she didn't really have my back. Cause it's like, is it more important for the stylist to stay because maybe she brings in some money when she's making other people feel this way? And I think at that point, it was more me. I came in more confident and, I was having great guest experiences. And I think she just didn't like that because I was the new girl, right? So that made me, that kind of put a little scar in me, but it also made me realize, one day if I run a salon, that's not going to happen. That can't happen because it can affect people for a long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I totally understand that leader thinking that maybe that's the right thing to do of like, okay, these are two adults, let them work it out themselves. But sometimes people just don't actually have the tools and the capacity. And also sometimes, especially if you have someone who's really in that space of no, I'm not going to get along with you. There's no reason I have to get along with you. You sometimes need a, mediation or I feel so sad that you had that experience, but it also taught you some things.
Totally. And it helped me become who I am and and how I think. Right. Yeah. And, and in the end, she ended up leaving the salon and, unfortunately trash talking the salon to her guests before she left. And it was just like, that could have been avoided. But again, it's something that you learn. Again, love the salon owners, but it's just an experience. And I think about too, like anyone else that would have stayed in that environment, how did they feel?
Right. And you know what? It's with a lot of the work that I do right now as a leadership coach, it's a common story. Unfortunately, leaders, I'm talking with leaders and they're like, hey, I have this employee. They're not very nice to other people. They're, it's very similar examples. Like they're just not engaging other people. They're rude to other people. And really sort of what do we do with that? And how do we do with that? Well, you now are a salon owner and manager and lead. I'm curious about like, how is it? Like, what are some things that you do?
Well, I guess one question that I wanted to bring up was how much control does leadership have over culture? And I really feel all of the control.
All of the control.
Like all of it. Like people say the term, the fish stinks from the head down. I actually don't even fully get it, but I get it. Like I get the idea of it. And it's like, it is up to you to make sure you have a positive culture.
Yeah.
You can't just like, leave it, forget about it. Because I mean, you could have 100 employees. If you have one that is toxic, that could just ruin everything for you.
Yeah. That's saying, one bad apple spoils a bunch, right? Yes. And it is really, to that question of like, how much control does a leader have? All of the control, I've said this probably on previous podcasts, as leaders, whatever it is that you see in your business, you are a direct cause of what you see in the business, whether that is you're not dealing with something or you're not dealing with something skillfully. Absolutely. It is up to leadership. Right. And there's some really clear strategies and approaches that you can take to ensure that you have you sort of move those toxic employees along the way or change them. It's one of the two. But
so as a leadership coach, like you tell me like what, and previous salon owner, like what are some, first steps for salon owners that might realize they have that employee?
Oh yeah, gosh. Like there's so many, as a salon owner, I had many experiences of toxic employees, unfortunately. And at the time I didn't know how to deal with them or what to do with them. Now I really know that it starts with having really clear vision and clear expectations to begin with. Again, the work that I do with owners now, it's like, are you really clear with who you are and what you stand for? That's the work that has to happen before anything else. How do you coach someone, or can you hold someone to a standard or an expectation if you're not even sure what that standard or expectation is? So it's really starting there, right? Yeah. Clarity, 100%. And then when you do have someone who is not aligned with that, it is about first of all, it's about getting curious and ensuring that it's not an emotional, like you're not just having this emotional response, right? That it's not subjective. Like, oh, I have a feeling that this person is doing this. You need to actually have observable behavior, facts for sure. Right. Yeah. And then what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, and then when it comes to facts, I think you have those conversations, and a lot of salon owners and people in general don't like having tough conversations. Yeah. But it's like, what is the alternative? Right. If you don't do this, right? So like you were saying, having those clear expectations, making sure they understand them. Yeah. And at some point, you set a specific time period. Okay, so it needs to clear up, get better. The attitude or whatever needs to change by a certain point. Yeah. And then you have to understand that there may be a point in time where you might have to let someone go. Yeah. You might have to liberate them. Right? If they're miserable, if they show up miserable in your business and they're miserable. They're not happy either. Yeah. But you said a couple of really key things in how you sort of deal with them. Yes. Having those conversations first. Yes. Having the expectations, having those clear, having the courage to have those conversations. And again, like those conversations need to be direct and private. You do want to create some safety. And, I often say that too. It's like, if not you, if it's not you as a leader having the conversation, then who's having that conversation? So you really, you can't, if you're not having the conversation, you can't blame the person for not changing. But yeah, those direct conversations, the very clear expectations, the private space, and the follow-up, actually having a time frame of like, here's the expectations. This is what it looks like by this date, really not just, hey, this is what I want to see. It's like very clear. And then following up, hopefully you're observing some changes in the behavior. So you're following up and saying, thank you, Colleen, you did great. How is this feeling? Where are you getting stuck? What's working for you? How is this impacting your team? Hopefully it's the positive sort of follow-up. Or if nothing has changed, then maybe it's that conversation of like, okay, are you willing? You're willing or able, like, we've had the conversation, so it might be time to part ways. Yeah, which is difficult, right? What, it can be tough. And maybe there's another environment where they might flourish.
100%.
You just don't always know, but you really need to make sure that somebody fits with your culture. They don't have to be the same as everybody else, but everybody needs to contribute to the culture. And good and bad, if you have one toxic person, they really start to multiply very easily. Oh my gosh,
they do.
And it happens quickly and before you even realize it. But on the other hand, when you have that positive environment and you have a team where you grow and it's a positive culture, it's very difficult for somebody who is toxic to maintain themselves in that culture, right? They might be the ones like, you know what?
They remove themselves. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Yes. If you leave, like that's one of the impacts of like not dealing with a toxic employee,
absolutely,
is that soon you have multiple toxic employees. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so many parts to it. Question for you. If you can share one, or if you can even think of one, what's a leadership mistake you've made that's impacted culture, and what would you do differently now?
Oh my gosh, I make them all the time. Like, I wish I didn't. Sometimes I think that my desire and my belief in other people, I overlook maybe the negative behaviors for too long, or them not meeting me where I'm at. So sometimes I think I may give more than I should. I can't want it more than they want it. And which so sometimes, hard. Which I really like, I see potential in people all the time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this person can be so amazing. And I give lots of resources. I give lots of tools. I give lots of support. I try and, learn how to even be better to sort of meet them where they're at. But yeah, I do it all the time. It does it like, I think I'm getting better at it now. Having that clarity of like what's acceptable and what's really aligned with the people like who I work with. But yeah.
That's fair. And I guess you have to think about too, like the people that work around them as well. And it's like, at what point are they thinking like, oh, like, I feel like I'm no longer being, what's best for me because there's so much being put, into somebody else,
all
right?
my time, all my resources, all my support might be going into one person or, one partnership. Yeah. Well, what about you? Sharing. What about you? Gosh, a leadership mistake that you've made.
You know what? I think the number one mistake as a leader that I've made is taking things personally.
Oh yeah.
It's so hard not to do, when you care about people and you care about your business, it's hard not to take things personally if, someone's unhappy. But I've really, and I have to check myself once in a while, but I really start thinking about facts and looking at it from other people's perspectives. Because I just, life's too short. You just can't get upset about everything. Oh, there's always going to be a reason, right? So, I think I used to take things quite personally, and I've gotten a lot better.
Yeah, it's because you care so much. Yeah, I was there one time too, and it's been lots of work that I no longer. And there are lots of tools you can do. Like, I love how you said that. It's like looking at facts or making it objective. So, trying to get out of the emotional space and the factual
space. Getting a great therapist. I mean, everyone should have a therapist.
Yeah, everyone should have a therapist. Absolutely.
Cool. Okay, so let's get into, so we have some culture cards here.
Okay.
So we're going to take turns drawing a card, reading some different scenarios, and then we'll each kind of share, how we might, our perspective or how we might approach each of these scenarios. So you want to go first?
Sounds good. Yay. Okay, culture card number 1. All right. The salon owner wants to implement a new commission structure and the team is anxious about it. Ooh, how would I handle this? Of course, communication. Yes. I think, there's a few ways I would sort of coach to this. So ensuring that the salon owner really understands the why, has done all the math and looked and said, how is this going to benefit or impact the team? How is this going to impact the business? How is this going to impact, the greater community or whatever. The team is anxious about it. I would also, as a salon owner, just really make space for that anxiety, like, ensure that there's enough time to talk about, the why, but also the time to like ask questions and a safe space to ask those difficult questions. I think that's really, really key.
Yeah, I agree. I agree on all those things. And we've done something similar to this recently, and it went over really well. And it's because we communicated very specifically all the facts, why we did it, how much research went into it, and how it will benefit the team. You can't just change something and assume that people are going to be okay with it. So it really needs to benefit everybody.
The communication, like you said, the understanding. The other thing about this too is that it's not something that you would just do. Like there's got to be a lot of deposits, meaning, when we're talking about culture, there has to be, if you're just changing things and there's no trust built within the team, you're going to have some pushback, rightfully so, because there's no trust. So there has to be a lot of deposits and trust. And, does the team really feel like you have their back? Does the team trust that you're, making these right decisions for the best interest of all, the guests, the business, and the team? So there's that too.
Yeah. And like you said, just making sure there's a safe space for them to ask those questions, making sure they understand that you're open to having the conversation. And if you're not, then you should think about why.
Right. Yeah. And even in preparing for this meeting or preparing for this conversation, the salon owner might want to even think about what might be some of the difficult questions that people would ask, just again, to prepare them. So like, can they answer it? Can they? Yeah. Okay. Culture card, a hands-off management style shows trust in your team. Do I agree with this? Yes and no. A hands-off management style without structure, vision, clarity of direction, clear expectations, that foundational, those anchors, just helps. It just actually makes your team anxious because they don't know if they're doing well or not. So I think a hands-off management style can be very successful when you have those pieces. And actually, more important, not just having those pieces, when you actually subscribe to those pieces, you coach to those pieces, you live to those pieces. Then I think that absolutely, then you're allowing your team to be empowered decision makers or empowered leaders, where you trust that they're making the right decision, the best decision, because they have all the clarity. Yeah, what about you?
They're still available. Yeah, I agree with absolutely everything you said. I think as long as they know that when you're hands off, it doesn't mean you're like in Hawaii, all 352 days a year. 352.
365? 52 weeks.
What's been 52? Like, okay, I got the two together. I was like, that doesn't sound right. As long as they know you're available and that you care. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And even if the manager or the owner is in Hawaii 365 days a year, like I've worked with some businesses where the owner is not even in the same city as the business, which I think is so interesting. And again, what's successful about that is the structure and putting key people. Of course, you need key people. You need to have key leaders in place that are really, walking the vision, walking the mission of the business. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And if you are away, maybe that owner, they have a key person that works with them who also is a bit more hands off, right? But is there and available. So there's so many different structures that can work. But yes, I agree.
Absolutely. It all goes back to vision and clarity over here.
Clarity, structure.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I love it. Okay. Oh, if everyone is busy, the salon culture must be good.
Oh my gosh. Sorry.
Do people say that?
I actually think that there is a mentality of that.
So, I mean, one thing I think of in the way that you could possibly say this is if people are busy with their guests, then they have less time to be, in the back room or having conversations about other team members or, being negative. And the other positive would be they're probably making more money, and people are often happier if they're making more money as well, but not necessarily. So yeah, I definitely don't agree that if everyone's busy, that means the salon culture is good. That could also mean that there's not as much time to have, coaching conversations or conversations that need to happen between team members. So there's definitely two sides to this, but I wouldn't use that blanket statement.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that that's true. Like as a, yeah, and it might actually be people are busy all doing different things. So then what's the brand that you have, like this person, so you're right with the coaching conversation, but the coaching conversations or that driving performance or that growth or like even like the team, we really, community is such an important piece of our industry, learning from one another, being inspired from one another, working together, like enjoying the people that you work with, you spend so much time with these people. So yeah, it's definitely, I don't agree that that's true. You always need to still have your temperature of the culture. You still need to be ensuring that the culture is aligned with who you are and what you say you want to be in the world. And that takes focus and energy, regardless of how busy or slow you are.
Well said, Jodi. Well said.
Oh, thanks. Okay, what's this one? Let me see. This one. You can be friends with your team and still be a good leader.
Oh yeah. I wanted that one. Just kidding.
Oh gosh. Yeah, this is a tough one because yes and no. Like I've worked with some leaders who, yes, they can be friends with the team because they've really had some very clear boundaries and said, hey, this is work time. This is when this is lead time. And really are confident in that and can hold that line. But that's not usual, honestly. And I think it's really difficult. Leaders have a hard time coaching other people. It's hard on them because they want the friendship, like the friendship is important to them. Yeah. So it's a tricky one. I'm not going to say that they can't be friends, but it's pretty tricky.
It is.
You know, you have to have those boundaries. What about you, Colleen? Like,
yeah, I agree. Same thing. I think most people, it would be very difficult, challenging, and it probably makes life a lot more difficult. And it is sad because it's like you kind of feel like you've lost something, you know, especially for new and upcoming leaders where they're leaving, you know, a role where they, you know, they were with their peers and now they're having this opportunity. That's probably the most difficult time when they realize like, oh, like, I don't know if this is going to work. You know, people are having conversations with me that are more like venting rather than coming to me as a leader, or they don't respect me because they see me as, you know, I don't say equal, but you know what I mean? So I think it can be a big challenge.
Yeah, it can be done, you know, again, like those clear boundaries, and someone needs to be really confident in saying, hey, this is not an appropriate conversation to have with me. I am a leader. You know, anything that you say to me, also know that I'm a leader and I am obligated and feel obligated because I care about the company, you know, to do something with that information or to do something. So the only time I've seen it work is really, when both people really understand those boundaries, understand and respect those boundaries. But
and when it says friends, I'm taking this as like we hang out outside of work. Like like you can have friendships with people at work as well too, right? There's different levels of friendships, but like to me, it's like the hanging out outside of work. You know,
which I have seen it. You can do it, but can be challenging, and it has to be very structured and very clear boundaries, and
there needs to be a lot of respect.
Lots of respect, which hopefully you know you have as a friend.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Any last points?
No, that one. Keep going.
Okay.
I like these cards. They're fun.
Okay, next up. A new hire is struggling to mesh with the team. Yeah, so a few different thoughts on this. First of all, I think it's a great idea for potential new hires to be introduced to the team before they're hired. You know, sometimes it's nice to give like the team an opportunity or just to see how they, you know, interact with the team. But the thing is, no matter what, when somebody's a new hire and they're coming in, there's all different types of personalities. Some people are shy. Like it's so hard to see somebody's personality right off the bat.
Yeah.
So I do think it's helpful to see how they interact with the team. That can, you know, in instances where it's very clear that it's not going to be a fit, you know, I'm not going to hire them. Because, you know, you might have an off day and have this interview and think it went really well, hire someone, and then right away you're like, oh, that was not a good idea. So getting a few different people involved, I think, is helpful. But when you do hire someone new and if they're struggling, I think it goes back to having like conversations with both the new hire and with the team and kind of just getting the temperature of figuring out, you know, what is it? Like, what are the challenges? What are the facts? Like, so they're struggling. Like, are people being, you know, mean to them? Or do people feel like they're not helping? Like, there's so many different things. So I think getting to the facts and seeing if that's something you can coach to for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this. I think there's so much work that I say we, salon owners and salon leaders could do better when we're integrating a new team member. And, you know, the onboarding process, like, you know, there, some of the best practices that I've seen out there is like having a buddy, you know, like partnering them up with a buddy, learning a little bit about them. You know, maybe it is like learning about what their, you know, their most proud moment of the past year was. What did they really love about doing hair? You know, so learning some things, sharing that with the team before that person's even in. So then it gives the team even some talking points. The buddy piece. Also just making that team member, that new team member feel really welcome. So maybe it is like a little welcome package that first day and saying like, hey, we're so glad that you've joined us. Because it can be very intimidating for a new employee to go into a very well-established, awesome culture, especially if they're new to the industry. Like if we're talking about our new talents or our assistants. But yeah, just that work, I think we could do a better job again in the proactive sense of like, how do we avoid this from happening? I love the buddy system. You know, you have a buddy, you have you know, maybe you have a budget and that buddy gets to take that person out for lunch somewhere close, you know, or something, just again, that integration. But yeah. And then to your point, if you have someone who's there and they're struggling to really integrate or to mesh, I'd be curious, you know, and I might ask the person, the new hire, and be like, hey, like, what's something interesting you've learned about 3 people? so again, to just get them
Yes.
focused on what it is that the work that they need to do. I might ask the team like, hey, what's something that you learned about the new person that you think is really cool? Or, what are you excited about? Yeah, just like, again, it's like without telling them, hey, you need to integrate, you need to be nice to this person,
yeah,
or like,
yeah.
what is this, what are they doing? It's really, really helping them or empowering them to
like facilitating the process.
Yeah, exactly. Great word. Yeah.
Making I agree with you, making the hiring process and onboarding like an experience for that person, because it can be scary. And I think if you do that, it'll kind of break down some walls already for them, and they'll kind of be able to be more of their real selves right away.
Right away. Yeah. It's rather than like do I fit? Where do I fit? Yeah. We just sort of take that as much as possible. We can take that. We can help create connections right away.
Yeah.
Hey, you have a dog? Hey, so-and-so has a dog,
Yes.
Yeah.
And when you have a great culture in your salon, a lot of times that can happen too, right?
Yeah.
You let people know. That's one thing we do now is like before we have people come in, even for just a working interview, it's like, hey, this is their name. This is something about them. And great. Please make them feel welcome when they come in. Yeah, so we've had so many people say, oh my God, I just felt so good, like right when I came in. So it's important.
Awesome. So good. It's important. Awesome. Okay. Good. Okay. Next one. A stylist is going through a personal crisis that is affecting their work. This is so good. I just came off an on-site where I got an opportunity to witness and watch how this business sort of works with this. And, there is this fine line in leaders and even in the team of like, how do we support someone who's going through a personal crisis while still also ensuring that the rest of our team, the rest of our guests aren't impacted in a way that negatively impacts sort of what they're doing with their work. And this, what I just witnessed in this last little while, just on this onsite, was they have some really clear sort of scripts that they say like, hey, it might be something like I know that you need some support right now. Is this something that can be worked with? Is this something that can be handled or figured out within 5 minutes? Or do you need to go home for the day? Right. Like it's, it's sort of creating some boundaries on this. I think that's really helpful when you have a script like that.
It can be tough to do that, especially if you have a personal relationship with this person, right? Yeah. It's like you have that like friend brain and like want to help brain, but you also need to think about like the health of the rest of the team. Yeah.
The other thing with this too is that something that I see again with a lot of the work that I do, a personal crisis, I think a lot of leaders, I shouldn't say a lot of leaders, some leaders really want to be the person that helps the employee. And we are not licensed. We're not licensed psychologists. We are not, we're not counselors. So really the help sometimes that we provide or that we should provide is, hey, here's the resource. Hey, I'm here for you. I support you. Yeah. I want you to be well, or I want, I want these things. I care about you. And here's a resource. And if it's, again, depending on the crisis, it might be that you're, calling a crisis center for them, or you're sitting with them, or you're making sure that they get to a place, that's the work. I think leaders have to also be careful of not being in a position that they're not,
Well, and think about it. Like, are you helping them to try to help them, or are you helping them because it makes you feel good about yourself?
Yeah. Yeah.
A team member consistently outperforms others, leading to feelings of jealousy and resentment.
Oh gosh.
So I wonder, are they like, I'm guessing this is more like outperforms others in regards to like how much money they bring in, how many guests they have, like that. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah. I'm like, where do I even start here? So, I mean, I think this is a normal thing that can happen. I think there's a lot of different things you can do that would be helpful in no particular order. The team member that is outperforming others, it's like what is their attitude? Because it's one thing if their attitude is like, oh, I'm the best, I'm superior to others. Yeah, you can see why that would rub people really wrong. Whereas if they have more of like collaborative sort of personality where they like want to, share with other people and help other people kind of get to where they are. Yeah. That is helpful. But then you also have people who, no matter what, they just, see a threat in that sort of team member. So I'll think of some more things, but I know you probably have some things. Yeah.
This is a good one. It's sort of this culture, I think, unfortunately, it stems from this culture of like everybody gets a ribbon and everyone's treated the same. And it's like, It's actually not true. And I think that's been hurtful in our, not just in our industry, but in other industries. And I think it's really, we do want to create the space for people to really excel and to perform. But you're right. You know, they have to also still have that attitude of sharing and in service of, and that there's plenty to go around. It's not, hey, I'm winning and you're all losing. It's like, actually, we all win and we all win together. So I think what leaders can do is really create the space of like, hey, celebrating, okay, like, this is great. You've got this great performance. What are the things that you're doing well? Hey, do you want to mentor someone? But also ensuring that leaders aren't just only celebrating that person.
Absolutely.
You know, if it's only like, oh, this person's amazing, then you're feeding into that resentment. You're maybe creating that jealousy and that resentment. So ensuring, that you are celebrating, you're looking for the things, you're looking for improvement or where people are moving the needle forward, and calling that out, also creating those opportunities for this person to share. And then, if you really do have a person who is very collaborative and they're sharing, and you still have a person who has that jealousy and resentment, it would be coaching with that person.
Is it one person or is it everyone, right? So let's figure that out.
Yeah, it would be coaching with that person. Like, what's the limiting belief? What's the, it's working with that person as to why they feel threatened or what's going on for them. Yeah.
And I like how you said celebrating other people as well. It doesn't just have to be celebrating performance as far as, technical. Like it could be, somebody is just so great with guests, or somebody is just helping other team members so much. Like you really have to think of like a broad spectrum of things you can celebrate with your team.
Or someone had success. Like maybe someone's been struggling with retail and they tried something different and they got a positive result. Oh my gosh. Like that is amazing. Like they just moved that needle forward just a little bit. That's awesome. Like, and I really love celebrating those things because we know that change can be scary. Doing something different, than we've always done, it can be a little scary. So I love calling those things out. And there's always something to celebrate. My turn. Okay. Oh, there's a few stuck together.
I was gonna say, I have two. I hope you have two.
Whoa. Okay. Team members are starting to gossip about others. Oh man. I sigh about that one because I don't know why it happens, but it really does. It gets into this place and
it's not always coming from like a toxic, it's so hard to explain. Yeah.
They're like, it's this, it has to be discussed as soon as possible. Yes. That's the only thing. Like when a leader hears that people are talking poorly about other people in the team or poorly about the business, it has to be addressed immediately.
Absolutely.
And that might look like, hey, just setting the expectation of like, hey, if maybe it's a group conversation of like, hey, if there's something that you're unhappy with, please talk to the person who can make a difference. Not talk amongst each other because, when asking them, like, what are the impacts of that? No one feels good. It doesn't help with morale. And of course, nobody's perfect. No business is perfect. No leader is perfect. But when people are gossiping, when team members are gossiping about others, it has to be addressed right away. So it could be, again, in a group conversation or one-on-one. Hey, tell me what, this is unusual for you. Like, tell me what made you want to talk poorly about this person. What's going on here? What's the impact of that do you think on that person? What's the impact of that on you? What's the impact on the culture? The team, everybody. So it has to be, you need to have leaders who are brave to have those conversations.
And best case scenario, you have a culture where people feel confident if somebody comes to them and says something that they can be the ones that say, you know what, I'm not really comfortable having this conversation. Because in many cases, that might make the other person realize, well, that was stupid of me. Right. Maybe they were just trying to make some sort of connection and they just weren't thinking or whatever it might be. But it's nice if you have people and then it doesn't even have to get to, the leadership management, right? It can just be dealt with in the moment, which is ideal.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Yes, absolutely. Ideally, you have someone on the team or someone in that conversation just says, you know what, I don't know if this is really helpful. I don't know. Yeah. And if they don't feel comfortable, then hopefully they feel confident going to a lead and then having that conversation because you need to protect the culture. You need to protect the culture at all costs because again, we spend so much time with these people. And it's easy to complain about. It is. It's easy. Like nobody's perfect. And I think that's, I think to your point, you said sometimes people say it because they're looking for a connection and but that's not the connection you want to make. No. It's not, that misery loves company.
Exactly.
Well, let's help.
Roberta's mom would always say, Said, do you want to cluck with the other turkeys or do you want to soar with the other eagles?
Oh, I love that.
I always
Great
think of that
one.
when she would say
Rosina,
that.
good one.
Yeah, it was a really good one.
Nice.
It was a good one. Shout out to Rosina. Oh, no, 3 apparently.
Wow.
I don't know if we're going to get through all of these. Let's see. A team member feels their ideas aren't valued during meetings.
Oh.
Okay, so this comes back to the facts. So a team member feels this way. They feel that way, so it's their reality. So obviously it's something that you have to deal with. Maybe it's not a fact. Maybe you think that's not the case. I think it just comes down to having a conversation with them and finding out, there's probably something behind that as well. I'm guessing this isn't maybe the first time they've felt that way, but just figuring it out, like getting to the bottom of it and having just a real conversation. And then if it ends up being something where you realize, like as a leader, maybe you made a mistake in this case, figuring out a way that you can rectify the situation that makes that person comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much in this, when someone doesn't feel like their ideas are valued, it really to me feels or sounds like someone's not feeling heard. And so there's a lot to sort of look at with that, as a leader. Is a leader actually hearing that person's ideas? Are they, documenting them and saying, and either saying, yes, we can do something with this idea, or not right now, these are the reasons why, or actually this idea is not going to work in our business because of these reasons, rather than just hearing this and not doing anything with it. There's some pieces there, but also that other piece around, if a team member is really not feeling heard or they're feeling like their ideas, I think it's important for a leader to ask themselves, like, am I listening? Am I open to this idea? Why or why not? I think that sometimes leaders, because they wear many hats, we wear many hats. Sometimes we are juggling. We're not hearing all the things. So maybe it's just a different strategy of like, hey, let's write down those ideas. Like, let's get those ideas down, or a different way to capture them even. Yeah.
And take it as a win that that, because they could just leave and be like, oh, they don't care about any of my ideas and not tell you, right? So in this case, I'd like to think this person came to their leader and said, you know what, I didn't feel value. Yeah. That's already a win, just knowing that somebody's telling you that.
Yeah, good point. Absolutely. Well, do you want to do another one? Because
no, you go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead. The statement, team culture will fix itself if you just hire the right people. Team culture will fix itself if you just hire the right people. Yeah, if you hire the right leaders who lead the culture. Yeah, exactly. Does it fix itself? Yeah. No. Team culture, like I said earlier, it has to be intentional. It is something that you're driving. It's something that you're constantly going back and measuring back to the values and the vision and the, who you are as a company. So yeah, no.
This makes me think that it already started off rough. So like, don't think if you have a bad culture and you hire great people, don't think that they're going to turn it around, because it's not going to happen. Not that easily.
Not unless they're empowered as a leader and saying, yes, you know what? And they're the ones who are setting the vision and the values and everything. But yeah,
it's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
Any other thoughts?
Nope.
Okay. I'm just going to pick. Can I just pick one of these for my final one?
Go for it.
Okay. There's a divide in the team between new stylists and more experienced ones. Yeah. Culture. It comes down to culture, right? Yeah. And making sure people understand, like, everyone has to start somewhere. So it's easier in a salon where people have started at a newer talent or a new stylist and worked their way up, because I think they more easily understand and think about where they were and how they felt. So it's easier for them to empathize with the newer talent. But I think it's also up to the leadership and the owners to make sure that there is, there's crossover, and the new stylists, for example, aren't doing all of the work and doing all of the towels and sweeping the floors. They don't just feel like, they're everybody's mates.
Yeah.
So there's different parts to this, but I think it's very important that even though people are on different levels of stylists, that they're on the same level as people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, you said it's culture. I say it's leadership. It's the same thing, right? Like there's this divide. It is, again, leaders having their finger on the pulse, understanding like what's happening. How are these new team members integrating? How are the, existing team members welcoming them? What are what are you witnessing as that's happening? And it's culture. It's leading.
Being empathetic and like seeing things from a different perspective. If you knew what people are going through, you might, treat them differently or have a different way of interacting with them. So I would say it'd be great to do like a day in the life of a new talent stylist, a day in the life of a senior stylist, and see the different challenges and, expectations that are put on all those different levels. And I think it would really help with watching and understanding what other people are going through.
Oh, I love, you just saying that there's this like a whole bunch of work that around intersectionality, like understanding who we are in our identity. So even just this level of stylist, but also just who we are as people. And I'll tell you, in our world today, for sure, if we can create those opportunities where people can think about other people's perspectives or put themselves in other people's shoes, the world will be a better place. I'm pretty sure.
So true. And it's easier to do than you think. You can get your mindset, a certain way. But I always, anytime I have like a newer stylist that comes and says, oh my God, this guest was terrible. She did this. I said, you know what? Just pretend her dog passed away last night. Oh, yeah. Now go.
Right.
Like,
right. Yeah.
Well, if that was the case, and maybe it could be, how would I treat them, right? So it can kind of help get you into a different mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. I love that. Except the sad dog.
I know. Well, then I start crying.
Just that shift in perspective, 100%.
Cool.
Well, thanks, Colleen. This was fun.
This was so fun. Thank you
about different culture.
Taking the time out of I know you have a very busy schedule, so I appreciate you taking the time and doing this podcast on toxicity with us in the salons.
My pleasure. Always a great time with you. Yes. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for listening. Leave us a review, share with your team, and tune in next time. We appreciate you.